Let's talk about Eve. The story of Eve in the book of Genesis has often been used to support the idea that woman is the cause of the fall, the cause of evil in the world, that she is the source of sin, that she is weak-willed, that she is therefore a threat to men. She's a source of terrible temptation, and so it goes on. Let's see what Paul says, for instance. Well, in fairness to Paul, it's probably not actually him, but the author of the first letter to Timothy, who claims to be Paul. In 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 14, we read, "And Adam was not the one deceived, it was the woman who was deceived and became a sinner." This is being used as an argument to put women in their place. Verses 11 and 12 say, "A woman should learn in quietness and full submission. I do not permit a woman to teach or to assume authority over a man. She must be quiet." Indeed, even in the Genesis account, Adam's quick to place the blame on Eve. The man said, the woman you put here with me, she gave me some of the fruit from the tree and I ate it." Nice one, Adam. In the 2nd or 3rd century CE, the theologian Tertullian wrote of women that "you are the devil's gateway, you are the unsealer of that forbidden tree, you are the first deserter of the divine law." A few centuries later, St. Augustine would argue that although Eve was the first to actually sin, Adam's sin is greater because he was the head of the human race. It seems that Adam didn't keep his woman in place. He didn't keep a close enough eye on her, who was, after all, created to be his helper. In the Malleus Maleficarum, the hammer of the witches, used, of course, to condemn witches in the 17th century, 16th and 17th century, women are seen as more susceptible to temptation than men. They are weaker and more carnal, etc., etc. If you think this is all ancient history, in a 2022 sermon, you can read it via a link I'll leave in the description, John Piper, a famous Baptist theologian and pastor, commented on the passage from 1 Timothy that I quoted earlier, echoing St. Augustine's view. And then the reference to Eve being deceived, not Adam, is, I think, a reference to the fact that Satan assaulted and undermined Adam's God-given leadership role, snubbing him and ignoring him as he stood there with his wife during the temptation. Genesis 3:6 makes it very clear. He was standing there as Satan was interacting with her and bringing down the relationship. Satan was ignoring the leader and instead speaking to the woman who was to be protected by the leader if he had been stepping up to what he ought to do. And the point of the text is, I think, that the disaster that followed is owing to this assault on the God-given roles of man and woman, as Eve was made the spokesman and Adam abdicated his role as protector and leader. So basically the serpent attacked the weak link, the weak woman Eve, rather than the leader Adam, thus undermining Adam's authority. Adam failed to step up to protect the much weaker woman. If women are not more to blame for the entry of sin into the world, it's only because they're weaker, and the man failed in his duty to protect her. What do you think of this idea? How about we interpret the Genesis myth a little differently? Eve is the hero of this story. She is the one who stood up to defy God's arbitrary command that they not eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Think about that. God didn't want human beings to become morally aware. Why? Because this would make them like him. When God expels Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden, he says, "The man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever." So basically, God didn't want the human race to grow up. He didn't want them to become a threat to his authority. And because they had potentially become a threat, he most certainly would not let them live forever. Jealous some? Well, God's made no secret of that, has he? The 4th commandment makes this clear. "You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. Eve stood up to this God. He proved himself to be a liar too, because they didn't die that day, as God said they would when they ate the fruit, and as the serpent had said they wouldn't. And she ignored her wishy-washy husband standing there and seized the opportunity to grow up when it was offered to her. Then she offered the same gift to Adam, who probably didn't deserve it. And for this, she was punished, and is still being punished, apparently. So Eve is the hero of this story. She began the process by which we humans could eventually become free of this deceitful tyrant God, because now we can reason, we can make moral judgments. There's no greater threat to the gods of our imagination than that.